All right, welcome back to episode 38, Chaining with Identity. So when we last looked at some of this stuff, we were dealing with point free, and so most of the code here is going to be the same as it was in episode 37. But in episode 37, we had this yell function, which was the composition of exclaim and shout, and we said that was point free because we weren't explicitly defining our input and our output or whatever, like we're doing with shout here. Where shout, we say yes, we have an argument. Yell point free is a composition of two functions which returns a function, which we said was point free. So that may be new or unexpected, or it may not make immediate sense to you if you're not thinking about functions as first class things in that way yet. So what I wanted to do was to show an alternative to this yell point free. So we wanted to do a yell function that was still chaining things, that was still composing things, but that was done in a non-point free manner, just to show kind of what that would look like. I'm not necessarily saying this is how you should write this, but here we go. So you may have noticed we included identity here from RAM to Fantasy, and identity is just another type. We've seen a lot of different types throughout the course of this. Identity is just another one, and basically what identity is it's just an object wrapper, basically. So we can have this yell function, and we can say that it accepts an X, and with our docs here, we can see that that total yell identity is going to take a string and return a string. So within our yell, what we can do is we can call identity of, so we can throw this X into our container here, and then we can map over this identity and exclaim, and then we can shout, and then we can call get. And so this function does the exact same thing as this function does, from the standpoint of, given the same input, it will always return the same output, and for every string input that you could give this one, the output would be exactly the same as every input to output that this function has. They go about achieving that result differently, obviously, as you can see by looking at it. But this is just a quick example of what that would look like. So in this case, we are saying, yes, we do have an argument, and then we can wrap this up in identity, and we can map over it, and then we can get the result out of the identity. Identity, because of the way that because of what it is, it's very, very safe to call this get. Whereas in a lot of other types that we would have mentioned, calling this get would not be a safe thing. With identity, it really is safe because it's just wrapping this up so that we can map over it. And then when we finally call our yell hello, then you see we get our hello just as we would expect, which is in fact the exact same thing that we get from our point-free version here as well. Well, that's going to return a function because yell is the last thing, but you get the picture. It's going to work the same either way. So there you have it. That's chaining with identity. So there's one approach to being able to do this same thing where you're composing these things without going all the way to point free. To me, this is a lot more ceremony, a lot more boilerplate, but it does explicitly define what your argument is. Other ways of doing that could be not using this compose and instead just doing shout and exclaim and mapping them. Or not mapping them, but if we do yell other, we could say that takes an X and it is shout exclaim X. We could also write it that way, which is basically exactly what compose is going to turn it into. So we're going to go do exclaim of X, and then the result of that gets pushed into shout, and then we could come out with it. So if we were to look at yell other, we would see that we get the exact same result too. So there you have it. That's three different ways of doing it. Two that are chaining. This one is chaining, but while it might be okay for just these two things, that gets much more unreadable as you go. I think that this one does the same. Compose has the benefit of staying very readable no matter how many functions that we're really chaining together. So I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. This has been number 38, Chaining with Identity.